Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40k Universe. I am your host, Gershwan, and today we're going to be talking about the Ogryns of the planet of Krourk. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40k lore videos every single day. If you have any suggestions, please comment down below. Don't forget to hit the little bell notification icon to stay updated to see if we actually create a video for you. And thank our patrons on Patreon. It's because of them that we can do this. Link in the description if you guys want to support. But with that said, let's get into the Ogryns of the planet of Krourk. Scattered throughout the Imperial Guard regiments of the Imperium of Man are the massive, brutish abhumans known as Ogryns. These valiant but savage soldiers tower over their Imperial Guard brethren. Some are even as tall as the Adeptus Astartes warriors. Since the days of the Great Crusade, the Ogryns have been a powerful tool in the wars of humanity. When the Emperor still walked amongst man, he ordered these muscle-bound warriors conscripted into his imperial army. He saw the value of these naturally aggressive yet powerful subhumans. They were perfect for close-quarter melee combat, and with a few tweaks to imperial heavy weapons, they proved to be deadly moving weapon platforms, showering the enemy front lines with heavy fire, followed by brutal hand-to-hand combat as they tore through whatever was left of the infantry line with feral rage. There was one major downfall to these colossal warriors. They were incredibly dumb compared to a normal human. Since their ancestors relied on brute strength over intellect to survive, the Ogryn race slowly lost much of their complex cognitive abilities during the Age of Strife. Cultural and social complexity took a major hit to the point where Ogryn colonies resembled prehistoric Terran caveman family structures rather than the highly social and connected empires of the Dark Age of technology. In these smaller family clans, not only did the toughest Ogryns rule over their people, but also the most loyal and protective members of the clan get a chance to pass on their genes, thus creating a race of abhumans that were brutally dangerous in combat, but also incredibly gentle and caring to those they allowed into their families. Their protective nature made the worlds of the Ogryns difficult to conquer during the Great Crusade. It was easy for the Imperium to control the space around an Ogryn planet, but once humanity made planetfall, it was a completely different story. Ogryn clans didn't have the mental ability to coordinate a planet-wide defensive against the Imperial army, but they did have a small amount of intelligence needed to put up a fight once the invaders were close enough to punch. Ogryn planets were radically changed after being conquered, and with the creation of the Adeptus Administratum and the formation of the Tithes Chamber Notaries, many of the homeworlds of the Ogryns became farms, where these abhumans were bred for the sole purpose of war. On these types of planets, the Ogryns were indoctrinated into the Imperial cult, and were trained to funnel their aggression towards the enemies of the Imperium. Once prepared to fight alongside the Astra Militarum, the Ogryns were recruited by waves and spread throughout the regiments of the Imperial Guard. There were certain planets that were so dangerous that the Adeptus Administratum decided to preserve these feral worlds and merely introduce the Ogryn population to the Imperial Creed, but any additional training was not needed and seen as a waste of time. One of these planets was the high-gravity steppe world of Krourk. Very little was recorded by the remembrancers of the Great Crusade as to the origin of Krourk. What is known is that the Imperium decided to leave the planet undisturbed and allowed its population of Ogryns to continue to live in the same manner as they did before their discovery. The savage brutes of Krourk developed a highly warlike society, much more aggressive and untamed than any other Ogryn planet ever encountered. The loyalty and protective nature of most Ogryns did not seem to develop in the population of this planet. Observing the culture from afar, the Imperium was able to note that these Ogryns did not hesitate to murder members of their own clan who they perceived as being weak. There was more internal tribal warfare than there were between opposing tribes. Leaders were constantly being tested, and the only way of proving that an Ogryn should lead is by killing any rival that might even ask the question. Because of this brutality, the Imperium chose not to conscript any of these Ogryns unless they were truly desperate. If the Krourk gene seed mixed with other Ogryns, out of a highly controlled setting of course, their future offspring could be uncontrollable, and the effectiveness of the race as a whole could have been jeopardized forever. When the savagery of these Ogryns is needed, an Imperial landing craft will descend upon Krourk and capture several tribes, making sure to mark each recruit and taking the Ogryns to fight upon battlefields many light years away from their homes. Each Krourk Ogryn must be heavily sedated while they are being transported. If the hypnotics were to wear off, the Krourk Ogryns could easily rampage for hours through a ship until they are brought down. In combat, the Krourk Ogryn Auxilia are terrible to behold. Very few Imperial Guard officers will ever try to teach them the relatively complex operations of a Ripper gun, partly because they don't have the patience to learn, and mostly out of fear that they will use the gun on the officer. Instead, crude but deadly close combat weapons are hastily manufactured for newly raised regiments, thus allowing the Ogryn to perform in combat as they know best. Once in battle, the Krourk are almost completely uncontrollable, and so they are used sparingly, with just 1 or 2 squads being assigned to any action alongside existing Imperial Guard forces. Only twice in the history of the Imperium's use of these Ogryns has the entire Auxilia been unleashed upon an enemy. So brutal was this force that tales of the destruction of the Mkarta base during a rebel uprising spread not only through the system, but the worlds in the neighboring sector were terrified of the cruelty of these Ogryns. These monsters are fully capable of destroying huge areas of civilized land in a very short space of time with their wanton lust for destruction. In great numbers, the Krourk Ogryns can easily rip apart armored vehicles and topple small buildings. Many Imperial Guard officers considered the Auxilia to be a primitive form of a doomsday weapon when used in this fashion, and so it is rarely ordered into action, as the Imperium is likely to suffer as much as its enemies. The main difficulty is always rounding them up after the battle has ceased, before the Ogryns turn their attention away from the battered enemies and start concentrating on the surrounding areas. The second time the Imperium used the entire Krourk Orc Auxilia was during the Third War for Armageddon. The planet was being devastated by the largest Orc invasion since the Ullanor campaign. Desperate for aid, the Imperial Military High Command weighed out their options and decided that they would risk collateral damage. Initially, the entire force was loaded onto the transport ship, with only enough crew to land the beast on the Netheria Peninsula of Armageddon. This location was chosen because it was isolated enough that if the Krourk Ogryns defeated the Orcs, they would be blocked from coming onto the main continent by the massive Tempest Oceans to the north. When the cargo was disgorged, the region that was essentially a frozen wasteland became engulfed in violence as the Krourk Ogryns clashed with the dreaded Orcs of Gotskull's Great Wall. The two barbaric forces unleashed their bloodlust, and it is said that within a few hours, the ice-covered peninsula ran red with blood of the slain. These sadistic armies tore each other apart, until the battle was no longer on the frozen ground, but instead fought on top of the Orc and Ogryn bodies. The Ogryns were successful enough to push towards the Orcs' main landing site, where a massive Orc fortress crashed into the frost-covered earth. Very few reports exist on the status of the Krourk Ogryn force. As was expected, the Auxilia broke all communication with the Imperial High Command as soon as the battle begun. The only information that has been gathered is that the Ogryns are still seen fighting the Orcs. How many still remain is unknown. Some say the Ogryns have resorted to eating Orc flesh as a means to survive, and yet others report that Ogryns are thriving, and the Abhumans have begun to take over the Orc rocks to the south of the Imperial stronghold. Scarier reports exist of enslaved Ogryns fighting the Imperial Guard forces alongside Orcs, and Ogryns being taken care of by Gretchen underlings. If this betrayal is true, this might mean the exterminatus of the planet of Krourk. And those were 40 facts on the Ogryns of the planet of Krourk. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, thank our patrons on Patreon. Now, in the link, you're going to find in the description, you're going to find a link to our Patreon page. On that Patreon page, there's really only one option. All we ask for is $1 a month. With that dollar, it helps us do the giveaways, which are coming very, very soon, towards the end of the month. If you guys want to support us that way, you are more than welcome to do so. If not, just liking, commenting, and sharing these videos really helps out the channel. So thank you guys ahead of time if you either share or if you support us on Patreon. You guys are awesome. What do you guys think of the Krourk Ogryns? They make me want to go out and buy the box set for the Ogryns and just create a unit of special Krourk Ogryns or abhumans. They're pretty badass. If you guys have suggestions for any other abhumans that you guys would like us to create a video about, please comment down below. Any Imperial Guard regiment that you guys would like us to create a video about, please comment down below. And I can't wait to talk to you guys in the comment section. But with that said, I'll talk to you tomorrow. This is Gershwan with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Always used to put my freedom first in anything.